Please do forgive the raspiness in my voice. I'm definitely coming off of a cold. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Starting a Record Label. This basically is a podcast about my weekly journey of starting a record label. So if you caught last week's episode, you definitely understood that. You knew that, one, I wanted to start a record label, obvious, and two, I had to actually ask my wife first, and that turned into three, which she said yes, but I need to have some things in order first. So let's go into that a little bit. I kind of promised my wife that I wouldn't sign a band until I had things at home in order, i.e. like housework, kids doing all their homework and everything. Like right now I'm like still like a mixing engineer, a recording engineer, producer on sometimes. So basically I am just like 100% like running around crazy. My wife works during the day, I work during the night. So it's just, our house is usually the last thing that we get to. And, you know, like I said, in the last episode, I really wanted to start a record label and focus on that and recording and producing good bands that I really like and enjoy, and stop recording, mixing, producing stuff that I don't. Now, I'm not going to say like that I never produce anything I love, because I do it every once in a while. Like I'm currently working with a band called The Dares that I've worked with many times before, and I love those guys to pieces. And there's a bunch of other artists that I worked with before that I love too. But if you're in the music industry, especially right now, it's kind of like a lot of people that have maybe like a passion project and like somebody behind them funding them with a lot of money. And so I get a lot of that. Or a lot of kids that are like YouTube kids. And so they might have talent, but you don't know yet because they're so young and they just want to do something like that. And that's great, but it's not something I want to do. And so I've kind of put that stuff on the back burner, and so we're moving forward. I'm not necessarily turning down work right now for mixing or anything else, but I'm not exactly searching for it either. But I read once that one of the best things you could do when you're depressed and you want to kind of move things forward is to clean your room, and that's how I started this week. And I started setting up all of the social media stuff that I can think of for the podcast. And I even bought the domain, which is kind of crazy that nobody had ever bought startingarecordlabel.com. And I also bought howtostartarecordlabel.com. That's weird to me, because I once tried to purchase a domain for like another podcast that I've done called Yellow Spandex. It's about like comic book crap. But anyway, people already bought that. And nobody had bought howtostartarecordlabel.com or startingarecordlabel.com. It's kind of weird. Just FYI, if you guys have a band or anything else that you're doing, secure that name ASAP, man. I even have things like ideas and stuff that I want to do in the future that I was like, let me see if that's already taken. And I definitely have. I don't know why I just hoard these domain names, and I've been offered quite a bit of money for a few of them, but I'm like, no, maybe I'll do that one day. But anyway, get on that if you haven't. So I started up all these social media stuff, the basics: Twitter, YouTube. I got the podcast website built, everything else. I'm actually pre-recording a lot of these interviews. I'm actually pre-recording a lot of these before the launch. A lot of times when you're marketing something, you really want to have a launch down first. So when I launch a podcast, I'm definitely going to have a few weeks at least lead time. So if anything falls through or anything happens, like this week when I got sick, I'm not going to be down a week. So that'll be nice for you guys. And I know you're thinking, isn't this supposed to be starting a record label, not starting a podcast? And I agree. But this is kind of part of it. And I think the podcast is going to continue after the starting of the record label. So just like there's going to be a need to roll out the record label at some point in time, there's still just a need to roll out the podcast. And so there's just a ton of stuff to do. And how I started it this week is basically getting all that social media crap for just the podcast set up. I have like a label name, but I don't know if that's what I really want. And I'll let you guys know on another podcast the label name, but I'm just not sure if it's going to fit exactly what we're doing now, because I picked this name out a long time ago and I liked it then, but I'm not sure if it's going to fit what we're going to do now, because I've really been thinking about what is a label today. Like, what do labels do anymore? They used to do like distribution for physical copies, like vinyl or CDs or tapes, even back in the day, cassettes. And they used to get their artists paid to get on the radio. I mean, it was kind of illegal to do in the end, but they still kind of did it anyway. So, but now we have streaming and online stores for merch, and we can even like get people on playlists and things. So why the heck do artists really need a label? I mean, if your idea of a label is the same exact idea that they've been doing for the last 100 years, then I don't think you really need one. So if things for the record labels have changed today, what has changed for the artist? Do they just stay the same, or do they change too? So the question should also be like, what technically is an artist today? I mean, labels used to put a lot of money into like developing artists, development deals, like, this guy has something, this girl has something, let's put some money into that and let's develop them. And in the end, they had some really, really great artists, and they did that to a lot of people. But they don't do that as often today. They still do, just nowhere near as often, especially not at like the middle level or the indie level. And I'm just gonna kind of come out and say it. I don't think a band can just release music today. I think that they have to do a lot more than that. And I'm not just talking about like social media stuff. I'm talking about creatively. I think that people need to see into the band at a different level today to keep the interest into it. And so if we take this and compare them to like the labels of the past, are you still a record label if you do more than just produce and deliver music? I mean, that's where I think this is kind of heading at this moment in time. It's definitely where I want to head, because I don't think there's any, at least indie or middle ground labels that are doing this. I think maybe some of the larger labels have, social media teams and whatnot, and they definitely have the money to do awesome music videos all the time, and their artists are just big in general, so they have a following on social media already. But what about new artists? How do new indie artists get launched? You can't just drop music on Spotify and YouTube and expect people to just watch. There's got to be a reason they come, and there's definitely got to be a reason they stay. And that's why I kind of think the industry needs to change. I mean, I listened to a great podcast called Other Record Labels, and the guy that does that, Scott, does a really good job of asking well-known record labels and record label execs how they become and continue to be so successful. And it's a great podcast because you get to like hear them, talk about their history. But a lot of them got their start like 10 years ago, 20 years ago or more. And then you don't really get to hear a lot about maybe their social media stuff or the way the industry's kind of changing and maybe having more video involved, which makes me then think labels are probably just like bands, probably not wanting to dip their toes into this newer realm of social media. But I'm not sure, because a lot of them do put out like music videos and things, but they might not completely embrace that social media presence kind of idea that like YouTubers do, or some of the newer things do, like TikTok. And when bands use social media, it's a little bit more like, what can you do for us? Like always, hey, make sure you guys retweet this or repost this, or make sure you go listen to our music and stuff. They're always like trying to force you to go do something, as opposed to like, hey, what can we do for you in social media? How can we meet you in social media? And I've had definitely a ton of conversations with bands that I've recorded about this, even a long time ago, even when, MySpace and Facebook were just kind of starting. Like, hey guys, you guys need to be on here and meeting your followers and your fans where they're at. And most of them, they don't want to do that. I don't know if it's just a little bit, if they're scared to do it, or if they don't have the time, or if they don't think that's just going to work. I don't know. But long story short, they just don't want to. So that's where I kind of think we need to be headed. And so for me, I'm setting goals. Basically, most accomplishments are kind of just goal setting with follow through. And, if you read the 4-Hour Work Week or any of those, I try to say silly books, but they're pretty serious. If, something you want to do, you need to plot it out. And so that's what this podcast is going to do for me. Maybe you need to do the same thing, whether you're a band or a label or something else. It doesn't matter. You got to look into the future. You got to put a date on that calendar, and you got to say, this is when we're going to start. And that's what I did with this podcast. And so, I've been trying to run things past other people with my ideas and how I think this is going to go and how I've been talking to you about, what I think labels are. And so I know these guys, they're kind of like YouTube creators, but they're also in a band and they're musicians. They're very plugged into the industry. They know a lot of big YouTube stars. They're just in that LA YouTube community. And so they're like really good friends of mine, Rod and Vince. And I kind of need to know, like, what do they think about this idea of being way more than what a regular record label used to be. And so we sat down at In-N-Out, late at night, noisy cars, enjoy.
We should have picked a not popular place.
Seriously, I didn't think it was going to be this crazy. So you guys are like doing something similar to what I want to do with a band. Like, however, like you're a duo, and I know it's probably a lot easier for you guys to do it because you're only two people.
I would say there's probably less headaches than having to get 5 or 6 people all on the same track.
Mm-hmm. Also, you guys are super like video minded and everything else. You understand things differently. I think like modern day labels are kind of dead, and so like I still listen to podcasts where they talk to labels, that just they just put out music and that's it. Like indie labels, I know they're probably bigger. Obviously the majors are still doing a lot of stuff, but like indie labels and whatnot, they're not doing a lot of video. I don't feel like
the successful indie ones really understand like the current generations. Like how they intake stuff, like Lady Gaga coming out with like a gorgeous video is kind of to be expected. Like she needs to have that, and we expect that from her. But like I don't know, I can't say like I'm trying to think of like an indie band that might do that.
I don't see a lot of like rock bands interested in doing stuff like that. I feel like they feel like it's beneath them. So like, what do you guys think of, or how I should go about doing that? Because I'm looking for a band that's going to be willing to it. So I'm assuming they're probably going to be younger, because I don't think older bands are going to necessarily be interested in doing that.
You might have a better shot with younger minds, because I think they get the whole 360 of it.
Yeah.
Like I feel old by not understanding TikTok.
Yeah.
But I know that I need to embrace it because TikTok has produced the last 2 like #1 Billboard charting songs. And both of them have broken records. Like I think like Old Town Road is like the longest #1 rap song or something like that. There's one of those records, and then Lizzo's Truth Hurts is both the 2-year-old song and like the longest running female rapper. I know this is just the fact that TikTok kind of like jump started like a career that she already had going for years.
Yeah.
So maybe having somebody younger, it'll be like more, or a band younger, they might be more understanding of it. I don't know.
Yeah, because I really want to move almost to like MCNs, or what is that what they're called? Multi-channel networks kind of deal, like what with bands. Where like I'm putting out their music, like helping them with their video, almost like have a spot where they can practice at and shoot their videos at and edit at if we need to. I want them all to be involved. That's going to be like a team kind of thing, but like involved with the band. So it's going to be obviously a headache to try to find a band that has some talent probably, or willingness to learn some of that stuff. But
the only foreseeable problem I see is if you get younger, you run into all of their life stuff. If you get older, they may not understand the industry as much as these younger kids with the technology. Yeah. But at least like they probably had already chosen to be like, I'm going to do this as an artist or whatever. Or you get that sweet spot to where they're not too young but not too old either, and all those things combined where they understand the industry, like and they want to make this the full-time gig. Because I honestly I don't know if this is true for everybody, and it's probably not, but I can't foresee trying to do an artistry or just like even being a band and having a day job or some sort of like schooling. Like for me personally, I would have to put all of my marbles into this one thing and make it successful regardless of whether it's going to turn out shitty or not. Like just put the best energy forward, whatever, or not best energy, just like do the best of your abilities. You know what I mean? Whether it's you're angry, sad, happy, put all the emotions into it. That's the point of the art.
I don't really care the age, to be honest. If you were 80 and you're willing to put it all into it, to be able to do video like at least a few times a week, be able to just work with more than just doing music, and being excited to do it and set to do it. I don't know. I as long as they're willing to do it, I foresee problems.
If I was trying to do what you were doing, and I would actually have to probably start as like a producer. And like find somebody, blow them up with my resources, like you're saying, you're giving your resources, blow them up like a Scooter Braun finds frickin' Gangnam Style, you know what I mean? Like obviously Scooter had like a whole long list of, you know, success before all of that, but like I would almost have to take that approach to where like I would try to have to like blow up one thing so that more people would be attracted to come to forth, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you're selling merch, like you got to have that big sale or something or like some celebrity needs to be like, I wear this too, you know? Like, and then people are like, oh, he wears it, I'm going to wear it.
That sounds like what he's planning on is doing like one band.
But he said it needs to blow it up for like have one band blow up first, but that's kind of like almost like a chicken before the egg kind of thing to like.
Yeah.
I'd have to have them in some kind of contract, like some kind of...
It's almost like you're bringing back of the development deal. Like, that doesn't exist anymore.
But, like, it's going to be like an everything development deal, not just a music. It's going to be...
Now labels expect you to already be developed.
But see, that's a myth, though. There's people like Lord and, like, Rachel Platt and stuff who are under successful development deals. There might be less success stories from them.
Yeah.
But they still happen, and it definitely is not as rampant as it once was. The underlying problem is the general public has undervalued music over the last couple decades. But there was a point where it was like not a commodity. It was like it was something that generated money, but also it generated money because people put value in it. You know, people paid for shows, they paid for albums. Yeah. Even though people complain, I remember being a kid in the '90s and people were like, I gotta pay $20 for the album. I only like 2 songs. You know.
Yeah.
But you still did it because you found the value in it. You know, because if you really wanted to steal it, you tape it off the radio like some of us did and stuff. You know. But if I really liked a song, which was a lot, I would still save up $20 and buy an album. You know, and stuff. There's got to be a way. Somebody, maybe this label could like bring value back to like the song, the record, or whatever, you know. A little bit of it's come back in like the renaissance of vinyl. Yeah. It's like it's given like a physical souvenir to something, because I wish there was a way to test like the statistics on who's listening to the vinyl versus who's buying it. Even though I have my
statistics I've seen out there of people, only like 20% of people who purchase vinyls actually listen to them afterwards.
I didn't even know that was like a thing. That makes sense. I wouldn't even be surprised if it was lower than that, you know?
So you're saying you want to Josh to bring back the quality of music?
Well, somebody, or collectively, is like it's because it's probably not going to be one person unless something viral happens, but like to get music to keep going as an industry, they're going to need to find a way to make it valuable to people. And it's doable because, who was it, Vince Gill pointed this out. The coffee industry, Starbucks, is like particularly like led people, after decades of people like valuing coffee at like pennies. Yeah. Have made it okay to pay $5 a cup. You know, like people, like, even when iTunes was a thing, it was 99 cents a song. You know, Vince Gill has that famous quote. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's something like, you know, that you'll deliberate over like spending 99 cents on a song. You know, like, should I get it? Should I not get it? And stuff. But won't think twice about picking up like a $4 or $5 like latte, you know. Yeah. And stuff that you'll enjoy for a few minutes, but the 99-cent song you listen to 100 times, you know, if you loved it and bought it, you know.
Yeah, it does bring up the question of like, this is off topic, but like, how can we bring value back to music?
Well, that's not off topic. That's exactly what I was saying.
Well, like, the topic is, how is Josh gonna run a label?
Yeah, I'm saying like that, bring that collective back, like collectively bringing that back. I think that's what's going to make the label not run into the ground. You know, like be a part of like the next wave.
Well, I wanted to try to treat it not just as a label and try to make money off of just the music and maybe just the t-shirts or whatever else like musicians would normally sell to try to make money, but like also treat it as like a YouTuber or what you'd call an influencer would treat that and have sponsorships for certain things, or have videos. They're just pumping out videos a couple weeks and have creative stuff going on for that, so it kind of do their whole.
It's almost like you're like a media manager.
Exactly, be more than just a label.
There's not really a title for this yet. Yeah. Or if there is, I just don't know what it is. Because it's like you said earlier, it is like a completely encompassing 360. It's not just putting out music. Yeah. It's dealing with the socials. It's marketing. It's sales. It's merch if it gets that far. And that's what I was saying before. Is like it could be one band, but what happens after that?
It gets,
what's your
that's what I said, like it'd be like a multi-channel network kind of thing, where it won't just be one band. We start off with one and move on to the next, and then they interact with each other if they can. That'd be fun. I was thinking even like that Janelle girl, that new she's just like
Janelle Eliana.
She's just doing her life, like she's just in her van with her snake or whatever.
But see, that's another thing, is she's a good example. I was actually going to bring her up a little bit into this, is that people like theorize she's a plant or whatever on YouTube or something like that. I don't know for certain. Nobody really does. But last night I just watched her entire channel, which is really easy because she only has a handful of videos.
Yeah, she only has a few.
But at a technical point, the videos aren't that good. But I still watched all of them. I don't think she's bad. But if a corporation was trying to go after something, it would have been a lot technically better.
Yeah.
But she's cute. She's interesting. Her life is kind of interesting, So there's an it thing that, it's something that's like a 50-year-old idea. Like there's like an it factor that no one can quite put your finger on, but you know it when it's there. I think, like, as far as finding a band or something, like, it's more important to find that it thing than dedication or talent or anything like stuff, because like those things, we live in a city where there's like 1 million people with dedication and 1 million people with talent, or maybe some both if you're lucky. But if you can get the it thing, both those other things can be taught. Like Janelle Eliana can be taught to make better videos, and she's been improving a lot. But like no one can. I don't know. I know they say you can't teach the it thing. If you can, we don't know how to do it yet.
But I don't think if they don't have the dedication in the first place, though, it doesn't really matter if they have the it, because if they're not going to continue and do the things, like,
I agree with
they're going to be like sloppy, or if they're not going to care, they're just going to screw around, because like, I'm always up in the air about like what I should be taking from this, because it's obviously going to be their at least their music. I'm sure I'm probably going to be involved in the video and everything else, but like, what do I take out of it? Because I'm just scared that I don't want to scare bands off, but then again, I don't want to devalue what I'm going to put into it. So.
Yeah. You mentioned the MCN thing before, and MCN's kind of a dirty word in the social media realm right now. We're not signed to, but we've worked with people at Studio 71, and they're friends of ours. A lot of people who work there are friends of ours. My perspective, they're like one of the last like honest people in the business. They're also one of the last standing and the biggest. I don't know if they specifically do this, because I haven't seen like every single legal document they've had, but I think one of the big lessons that has come out of, because MCNs were like a completely new idea when YouTube kind of came out with its stars and stuff, and I think one of the big lessons that came out of that is clear terms.
Yes.
So like the biggest complaints that people would have about MCNs is like, well, they promised me all these things, they didn't deliver, and then I still had to make content, they took 15% of my money. And it was like, well, was that not like clear in the terms? So like I think the terms would be clear, like if you provide like a rehearsal space, there has to be a way for them to like physically check in availability or something, so that like there's like real, like, we had access to a space once a week, and we could get in or we couldn't get in or something, and then if either side faults on that, then there's like a really clear cut, thing or something. I think that's the thing anyone can learn, but in the specific like MCN management realm and stuff, like not leaving things up for like interpretation, down the road.
Clear terms is definitely a good thing. I also think that it should just be small at first. Instead of, not to say that this is what you would do, but if hypothetically you would set all these things up, pay into all the money to get the rehearsal spot, get the merch stuff ready, like you put all this money in so that when you finally get that person, it's this whole thing, this whole 360. I almost like theoretically would think like that you would want to grow with that artist instead of like, spend all this money and get all the things and then have people come in, like find somebody first, make it a handshake thing, because you gotta know if it's even gonna work, right? So like if you finally do find a band, maybe the route would be to grow together. So like they get excited when you all of a sudden you're like, hey, guess what? We can make T-shirts.
I think the handshake thing though is that vague area you want to
avoid. It's authenticity.
At least that's a start, though.
It's a start, but at the same time, like, don't let that go too long. Because that's where the gray area comes in. Because, like,
well, you don't want to get to a point, when you're trying to you're fighting over splits on the song, or like fighting over like whose money does
the monetization of any videos and stuff. That's gonna be crazy.
But see, that's the thing is, like, if you have a handshake by the time videos are being monetized, then that immediately becomes a problem. Like, so that has to be like way cleared up before any of that. So like,
well, that's what we were saying just before I spoke, was clear terms is the best, but it should be small at first and then work to like the huge contract where it's, you have a practice space, you have, this is taken care of, this is okay. Because you also want to know their worth too, and how's you going to find out if you just give it to them all at once?
I'm saving money now, looking into the future of what putting money aside for things I know I'm going to need to do. But I'm definitely with you on that. I'm definitely like, okay, first let's kind of do maybe trial basis and what we could do, see if we work well together. So if if you've got that. I'm looking for like what you're talking about, Rod, but I want to make sure that they have the dedication to follow through with it.
I get that, because I would even venture to say the majority of people just don't want to do it.
Yeah, because I'm going to be putting thousands and thousands of dollars into it, just money, not to mention me recording, mixing, producing, editing, all this stuff.
So if it were me,
managing.
If it were me, if you do a handshake to start off with, I would make it so neither party invests anything financially during the handshake period.
Absolutely.
Because like if you're handshaking and they start a YouTube channel, like you don't have any fingers in that monetization, and then you also don't contribute any financial things to it that aren't already in your possession. Like if you already have a camera, so you can help them film. But if you're going to buy new stuff, then there needs to be something in ink for that. That's the clear thing.
It should start out as a relationship.
Yeah.
That was
at least
my
get
point.
to know them first.
The whole point of what I'm saying is that you need to be able to trust the people you're getting in business with. And that's what it is. Even though they're new at it, it's still both your names are on the line.
But I still think that's part of the clear terms, though, because a problem a lot of people run into that they don't ever learn from again is they let that getting to know you period leak into the working together period without ever realizing that they crossed.
You got to set those boundaries early.
But people say that they're like, "Oh, you got to do that," but they didn't do it themselves.
What happens is just read out the process. Okay, we're cool with each other.
Yeah.
We're gonna work with each other. First thing we had to do is set up your YouTube.
Yeah.
All right, let's do that. Now here's what I'm thinking.
And that's going to be even scary. Like,
and you put the terms.
What do I set? Like, am I going to own the YouTube channel? Like, just all these crazy things.
See, that's the thing is, like, at first, if it is a handshake thing, you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's just hands down, you don't.
Which is why I think this is good. Like with the podcast,
we shouldn't even have
walking
through
YouTube this
video at first.
Yeah.
If it's a handshake, you're just getting to know each other. There isn't anything that exists yet.
But if they're a band and they want to release YouTube videos, is that something you prohibit them from doing until you're like in a good place? That's a good question.
It is a good.
I mean, like if I'm part of it, I imagine there's going to be some kind of management aspect of it, so that we'd have to talk about it. Yeah,
or not control, but like.
So that's another gray area that probably needs to be like ironed out.
The podcast is going to suss some of this stuff out because obviously once I get to a band that I think I'm going to enjoy, they're going to be part of the podcast, and so we're going to get to know them.
Yeah.
And eventually, I'm sure if they're a band that there is already out there, I'm sure they've done a video. I'm sure they've done some music and stuff before.
I'm just assuming, especially if you end
that stuff, I don't want to touch.
But then that's weird though. Like, at what point do you try to insert yourself into the situation? Because if you're managing them, there's only so much you can stay out of.
Yeah, it's going to be part of all of it. Yeah.
If I've developed, now it's been like a few months in my head, and I've developed this relationship with this artist, and now I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready to like invest in you. That's when, like, in a girl and a guy get together, they have that determine, or the D whatever it is, that determine the relationship.
Exactly.
So that's what would happen. I would sit down with the artist and be like, okay, this is what I'm offering at this point.
So to me, this is a little less clear because, like, just say that it's a band or an artist or whatever that has like the normal things that bands or artists have now, like Twitter, YouTube, with maybe TikTok or something, and they're already kind of doing it at least, maybe even at a moderate level.
Yeah.
How do you stay out of that completely until a point, and then set terms? You know what I mean? Because like it is possible to stay out of it and get to know them.
Yeah.
But like, what if it just happens by chance? Like you appear in one of their videos, or you help them with something. But what if it just keeps bleeding? It keeps like overlapping,
Yeah.
And then you don't realize that you're like fully in it, and then you haven't set terms.
Well, like someone in a bad relationship to where like the person's not committing on the other side. I'm sure I'd give like, if they're not going to commit and like we're not going to sit down and talk about like arrangements within the first month or two, I think I'd just be gone at that point.
So it's like a time thing.
Yeah, I think eventually like we get to know each other. and then, you know, okay, cool, I see what you're doing, I like what you're doing, okay,
this is how I can help.
This is how I can help. And if we do an agreement like that, because at some point in time, you got to make the jump.
Yeah.
So as long as you get to know them, you think their stuff's good, you think they have what it is, you think that they're determined, you're just going to have to make the jump at that point.
I do want to clear up from before, like, the it thing is important, but I do agree completely with the determination and motivation thing, because there's nothing, like, that's a bigger waste than someone who's talented and wants to do something with it that doesn't want to do something with it, you know? Like,
or that's lazy.
That's the thing, like...
Yeah, it can't accomplish anything or get anything done.
And I don't know if anybody, like, that's not American is listening to this, but it's like a very common American problem. It's like a lot of entitlement.
Say you do get the girl or guy signs the contract, right? You're in this, you're helping them out. All the paperwork's legit. Like, you know, there's no questions about splits or anything like that. Or same with like their social media as well. Like you've figured it all out. At one point, like if they were to go against something or do something outside of the contract.
So that's where I think, like, that's why the clear terms have to be made, because, like, you know, where Josh and I went to college, one of the professors required you to sign in during your piano practice times. It sounded like it was overboard. It might even be to a certain extent. But then again, at the same time, that made, like, terms like super clear cut. So, like, if you were doing poorly and you didn't sign into your practice times, it was, like, super clear, like, you don't practice enough, you know, or something like something to that idea, you know, like, especially if you have objective things like rehearsal times and spaces, videos. So even it might even be like, if you agree to do a YouTube channel, you're like, we're gonna do a video once a week.
Yeah.
And if we miss because of you, then that's on, you know, like, or something like, those are the kind of terms, and or there's strikes, you know, stuff like that.
I'm just like, the overall idea, like the fact that most bands don't have the money. Like you look at even bigger bands, they just don't have the money. And I feel like bands nowadays need to be more than just making music. I feel like they need to be out there completely. People want to know about their daily life, you know, what they're going through.
It's not even a feeling, man. It's just the truth.
If you want your responsibility to stop at songwriting, then be a songwriter. Vince and I are a band and artists and stuff, but we both have, like, songwriting goals, you know? So, like, as the years go on, I want to retire as a guy who writes songs for the next pop star that, like, just keep going on tour and stuff, because I don't want to, like, tour the country anymore, but I want to write songs, you know? So I think there's that, but if you're being an artist, then that includes everything. Robin Thicke, you know, when he was really blowing up, he has this famous, like, I don't know if it was a quote or like an interview, where he said there was years where he was so arrogant to say that he shouldn't have to integrate himself into social media because it was beneath him. And he was like, then he woke up one day and realized, like, I believe in my music so much, but I'm not willing to give it its full chance. It's like, that's stupid, you know? And then, not to say that social media is what made him popular, you know, and stuff, but it definitely helped. Like he said, he fully embraced it. Like, he was doing music videos, he was tweeting, and, you know, like, everything, or you at least have people managing that, you know, so there's, like, a presence out there, you know, because good chances you're going to get your big shot by connecting with the audience.
Yeah. Because you were talking about transparency, like, earlier. I want to be so transparent with this to the point to where, like, I almost want to be like, here's how much money we're making, everybody. Or at least I'll find for a way that someone actually can see it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I'm sure there's certain things that you can't necessarily do under contract, I think, with YouTube and other things to show, but I wanted to at least be like, here's where the money's going. Or like, maybe even just along the podcast, be like, the band's gonna make this, we're gonna do this is how we're gonna talk. If we need to renegotiate in the future, this is what we're gonna renegotiate. And I just want to be that transparent, because I feel like so many people just talk so much crap online nowadays, like, Josh is probably taking in so much money of theirs, or just vice versa, you know. Or
you're not just saying between you and the band or artist, you're talking about, like, overall, you want to be transparent through
podcasts, bands,
social media,
everything.
It's a bold move, but I definitely think it, like, helps you cover your ass a lot better. I'm not a business manager, and they might have a better idea of, like, how much of that can be transparent. I don't know. I do know, like, you know, speaking of YouTube, like, Shane Dawson and Jeffree Star just had the 6-part that's going to be a 7-part documentary about the release of this big makeup line.
Yeah.
That was insane. They sold out in, like, minutes, you know, like, millions of units or whatever. But they allegedly, I don't know for a fact because I wasn't part of the production, like, documented everything for real, all the numbers, the amount of money that was being invested and stuff and everything. Them revealing all the numbers during the business meetings, I'm just going to assume they're real because it's going to get complicated if I don't. that being real made me feel emotionally invested in it. So because it's one thing for even if you don't care about the numbers themselves, like, because I don't know anything about the makeup industry. When Jeffree Star says, like, Shane Dawson, you're going to go home with $10 million if we sell out this first run, and him, like, fainting on the ground and stuff, I understand that, you know, more emotionally than if he's like, you're going to make a lot of money, and then he faints. You know, it's like, I don't know what number that was, you know, but, like, I can internalize 10 million. It's, like, a lot of effing money. You know, so that could be cool. And then, you know, it could also maybe make the band more relatable, you know, if they're like, we have a music video budget of $100, you know? Like,
I really feel, especially you going on, you know, people don't understand. Like, people still think that bands make a crap ton of money. Even like people that are well-known artists, they don't make that much money.
You know, it's funny that you say that because so on, I forget what website it is. There's like a website that takes like I don't want to say celebrities because we're not celebrities, like, but people that are known to an extent online. You know, there's like a website for that. Yeah. So this website has valued RKVC as making $350,000 a year. If anybody's listening and has seen that, I want to say that is far from accurate. But it's funny because I don't know where that number comes from. Or that anybody cared enough to estimate that number on the website. You know, it's the same way with like YouTubers would be like, such and such channel makes several $1 million a year, and they're like, listen,
laughable.
Listen, like, I may not be on YouTube if I made that much money. You know, like,
yeah, right.
But I don't know, you know. But yeah, making the numbers, if as far as you could legally, I do think it's like a really bold move. So it's scary. Yeah. But I like bold moves.
I don't know if the bands would be totally into it, but like I'm totally into it just because. Like, I want to do this just because I love music and I love artists, I love bands, and I feel like they've just been gotten such like the raw end of the stick for so long that you know, I don't know. I just want to do it. I'm obviously going to have to talk to like a lawyer at some point in time. Hopefully that'll be part of the podcast as well. And I'm sure that's going to be an expensive meeting just to sit there and be like, what do I need to do? And what, you know, they're going to have to write some crazy contract, I'm sure.
Yeah, especially in California, because in California, it's like a two-party consent to record state for audio. So that means, like, if Josh does want to be completely transparent and we're working with people outside of the band and him, assuming that both parties there agree, then that means, like, if you're talking to an attorney, they're going to also have to agree to be on record and stuff. And so, like, the Jeffree Star, Shane Dawson thing, it's the only thing that makes me question if the numbers are real or not, is they'll be in board meetings with like Morphe or something, some big like makeup line, and then throwing out numbers on a conference call. And I'm like, what kind of legal paperwork happened, you know, for all that to be like just openly recorded, you know?
Well, imagine if they're not in the same, if they're in a state that's not that way.
Everybody's in California in this particular board meeting, but that also might have been the draw though, you know, because like, and that's what Vince was saying about the value of the artist or whatever, you know, like Shane in that case was the artist, you know, even though it's a different industry. And everybody knows like his value is so like weighted, they might just have agreed to all that. Yeah. To have, you know, the marketing of that. So that's actually a good example. If you take the marketing of that docuseries and if you could like replicate parts of it to music, man, like talking about making people value music again, I've never once personally valued makeup. Unless we were on camera for like stage makeup, I've never actually been in it. That series made me emotionally vested in that makeup palette. And I don't know how it did that, you know? They released 6 episodes of, like, the business trials, the design, you know, the hurdles of manufacturing, like, the factory getting robbed and all that stuff. And, like, being that transparent, or at least seemingly transparent, made me connect with it. So I think, like, your idea of being transparent financially, like, is a good step, albeit a bold one, you know? Like,
I think it'll help more than harm. I mean, like, if anything, in the past, just so that people know, like, it would be a very long, hard road before anybody made a lot of money.
Yeah.
So,
really, just all of this has made me realize how little or how much information that you would need to have in order to even get this, like, off the ground and going, you know?
Yeah.
And probably, like you said, a lot of money as well. The tough thing and the thing I was thinking the most is that it's all the unforeseeable things that it makes me like worried for you.
Seriously, I mean, that's part of the podcast though. It's supposed to be like what crazy crap I'm gonna have to run into. I know at some point in time I'm gonna have to create an S corp or LLC or something like that. It's gonna probably have to be somewhat soon. And then, you know, just having to probably, I'm sure I'm gonna go through more than one band before I actually find somebody. You know,
you know what's interesting? I just thought about this as far as the handshake deal goes. including everybody that's potential into the podcast might cover your ass on the accountability of the handshake versus clear terms and contract.
Exactly.
Because I'm thinking, I completely forgot this podcast was happening in real time with everything. In a traditional deal with like two people like shaking hands, like we'll work together, that bleed is so gradual that sometimes you already like knee deep in things before you realize what's going on. But if it's audibly been documented and stuff, and you're like, I didn't say that. Rewind.
Exactly, and it's going to have to be a lot of that because I in the future I want it to be, and I don't necessarily want it to be a reality TV show, but I want the podcast to even continue to be like daily lives of what's going on in the band or what we're doing at the record label now, to where like we're going to have to be running around with audio. There's going to have to be a part of the contract of anybody that's working in the record label, like of, hey, we're going to be recording all the time, so sorry.
Yeah, if you say something dumb, then
that's on you.
There's no one way anymore, like people say like, well, Radiohead just gave their album away for free and charged you what you want, and they made a ton of money. It's like, but they also like were like signed for like 10 years,
exactly,
and stuff. But then like Ingrid Michaelson like was discovered on MySpace and an old Navy ad.
It's kind of why you have to utilize all of the tools, even if you don't know what they are. Like, I don't know what a TikTok is, but I know my stuff needs to be on it.
Yeah, I imagine there's going to be a lot of trial and error, especially with the first band.
Yeah,
just figuring things out.
It reminds me of the chick that lives in the van that we were talking about, Janelle. Like, I think the thing for her is how authentic, because all you showed me was just the intros of all her videos, and I automatically knew that people like her because of how authentic it is.
Yeah, I mean, she's funny, she's cute, definitely is authentic and interesting. So like, I mean, authenticity for one is like highest thing for me, like one of the highest things. I mean, it's so hard for me to be like, oh, they need to have this and that. Like, but if you don't have like these certain things like authenticity, I can't stand someone that's fake. I just think back at the MySpace days of all those like the hair emo bands that were just all over the place, and like they just didn't have that authentic of music. It was like same old over and over again.
That's the thing. I get an argument a lot with other songwriters when I'm writing. I'm like, I want to do this. They're like, well, I haven't heard that before. I'm like, that's why I want to do it.
Exactly.
But they'll be like, but I don't know. Like that's wrong. That's just a wrong beat. And I was like, I hate that though. Like I want to try it.
Josh, you love rock. Like, I would love to see rock come back into the mainstream, because I feel like all we're seeing is this like plastic bubblegum. It's not that the music sucks. It's just the images are what we're seeing are very like plastic and superficial.
I think it also becomes like you see it more and more and more, and so you see into it more. So like, because I love pop music too, but like the fact that we don't see rock or we don't see anything else besides some of that pop music or whatnot, it's kind of hard.
I think that like rock is more stable even if it doesn't peak, which is like another like really valid like path, like when Aerosmith didn't have like a hit until 1999 is insane. You think about how long they never had a #1 song until 1999. They don't want to miss a thing. Before then, they always charted somewhere, but they were always around and everybody knew them by as a household name. I think the thing that added up to success was the sum of all the parts. Like they maintained like a sustainable ride instead of like a bunch of highs and lows.
I'd rather have a sustainable ride. Like highs and lows, and then because then you get like that whole rebound effect of like, I mean, I hate to point someone out, but like Britney Spears, where like she had such a giant leap into fame and then a giant crash after that.
That's the thing people like to see. The only thing people like to see more than the come up is the come down. So that's good. Like if you, I mean, in my opinion, I think it's like a lot more attainable to have like a sustainable ride with a band, especially rock, than trying to like shoot up the viral charts, and stuff.
I mean, I'm just not aiming for that. I'm aiming for making good stuff for a long time.
And that's another good point, is that's like the thing. Like a friend of ours, Steve Gossett, he's a producer director, his whole thing is like, in the movie world, is like, you should be able to write a script. You should write a script that's so good that if you forget it on the bus, someone will pick it up and make it. And I know a lot of our friends disagree with that, but I believe in that. If you write a song that's good enough, everything in the world could be against you, but it'll find a way. Like, people will share it because they like it so much.
There's a lot of bands that like have really garbage mixes from like the 80s and 90s that I love and will listen to all day, every day. But the recordings were just awful.
See, that's the thing, is like, the recordings should just not get in the way of whatever it is that's special about the song, whether it's too polished or not polished enough.
I'm just saying, like, the songs just leak through. Like, and it doesn't even matter.
I don't know. I mean, that, and it's especially doable in the digital age. If a band gets like, 100K to 1 million subscribers that are actually active on a YouTube channel at their music, you could totally sustain somebody off of that.
Yeah. You don't have to have that many. I mean, I can't remember who I was reading, but like just saying, like, you basically had to like have 1,000 really, really good followers or subscribers or whatever it was. I can't remember who it was.
There was a thing for it was going around. Our friend Chris Trapper and one of his buddies were under this thing. It was like, you have 1,000 fans that hadn't spent at least $100 on you a year.
That's what it was.
And that was like the 100K plan,
Yeah.
But some version of that, like if say like you have 1 million subscribers and then you make 10% of that, like 100% engaged or whatever and stuff. That's totally livable.
Which I think is absolutely doable with music and with video and with everything else that goes into it. Like, there's so many things that you can, so many things at your fingertips nowadays that you could use, and the bands don't even touch it. Bands, because I did this podcast, that Band's Life podcast, and they have no idea what the heck they're doing. And so, like, I've not even published some of the band's podcasts because they didn't know what the heck they were doing.
That's the thing. Like, a lot of our music peers are like, I'm not going to do YouTube. Like, I'm a musician. It's like. But literally, like, the most popular thing on YouTube is music.
Yeah.
Like, on every way you cut it, like, most engagement, most views, most, like, watch time or whatever is music. Like, I think 8 or 9 of the top 10 biggest YouTube channels are all music.
Yeah.
The number 1 YouTube channel is a record label.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them, though, I talked to didn't even want to, they thought it was deplorable to do, like, Patreon. They're like, I would never do Patreon. That's awful. So why would you do that, Any musicians or bands out there listening, Casey Neistat, who's a big YouTuber, had painted a really good picture of Patreon. He's like, before Patreon, you would have to get a brand to back you, even if you're like a major label artist. Even Lady Gaga had something sponsored by Doritos, and stuff, even if it's not forthright or whatever. And as a YouTube channel, you're sponsored by whatever, like audible.com or whatever, who may or may not be moral, and they pay for your thing to get to your listener or viewer or whatever. Patreon allows like your biggest fans to contribute directly to your art, and is like the purest form of financial stability, because you're getting it directly from the people who care about what you do, instead of like a corporation that just wants the people that care about what you do to buy something. So if anything, Patreon is like more pure than any other way of making money. They see it as like, begging for money, and it's like,
well, it's the same.
It can be if you do that. If you beg and not do anything, yes. But if you're I don't know. It's a matter of like how you do it.
You had just said 1,000 fans spend $100 a year. Patreon.
Well,
that's literally a place where it's continued to happen on Patreon.
Full disclosure, we have a Patreon account and we're friends with people that work at Patreon, so it's not completely unbiased. But it has been like one of the purest forms of financial like coverage that we've had. We've done not worse things. We've done other things.
I've done horrible things.
Well, like even like we've had to do. I don't want to like spoil like any other sponsors we could have, but we've like backed things that we may have not known about before. Like video games or whatever and stuff. But for our patrons who like really care about us to be able to like contribute to our success and stuff is like the purest form of like support. Financially, because even when bands are like, oh well, I don't need that, I don't need a sponsor, you'll have one at some point. If you're on tour, someone's backing it up. Even if like Fender might be like sponsoring something, or like Doritos might be backing you to like your tour bus or something. Like something is going to sponsor it and stuff. This might as well be your fans.
It's ridiculous to me because like if my favorite bands back in high school were like, hey, in order for us to continue, all you have to give us is like $3 a month. Sign me up. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Like I think it's like $5 or $10 on you guys a month, and it's like ridiculous. I don't even notice when it comes out. So it's just like that little bit of money.
Thank you, by the way.
You spend that $5 well. But
groceries.
Seriously, like if you have 1,000 fans and they do that, and they don't even know, and then they also get they're the first people to get to hear the new music. They're the first people to get to whatever, and it's just ridiculous. I don't understand why bands are just so ridiculous about it. And doing that podcast made me kind of realize like nothing's going to change unless someone changes it. So like that this is my idea. This is my plan. I don't know how well it's going to go. I don't know how much my wife's into it, but
my biggest thing is I just want to see who jumps on with you. Like, I know you're going to find bands and artists, stuff like that, but I want to see, like, outside of that, who jumps in.
I'm scared that nobody's going to be interested, because I'm scared that, one, they're going to be scared I'm going to be taking advantage of them. I think that also they're not going to want to do it because it's going to be a lot of work. Or that, three, they're going to think that it's ridiculous, that they shouldn't have to do it. And so I'm going to have to find somebody who is not only has that it thing, that is dedicated, but also doesn't think it's ridiculous, that doesn't think I'm going to take advantage of them, and is going to, ride on that.
Podcast being renamed the Unicorn Hunt.
Exactly.
The podcast or whatever visual thing that you do that is your rollout for this project needs to be as interesting for people to, like, somebody like a business person outside to be like, this is interesting, I want to be a part of that.
If I was, because I think I follow one other podcast that's about record labels. I couldn't find any other ones about, like, I could barely find something about music industry stuff. And I'd be totally interested in. I'm always looking for, like, music stuff.
Yeah.
And so if I'm interested in, like, a podcast like this, hopefully other people are too. And then maybe that will give me some validity.
And that's the thing is, like, I agree, like, that's the value, is that the podcast is kind of like the live documenting of, like, all this happening, and that would be the appeal to it.
So that's what you have to sell.
And
that's your mission, is to sell the idea of the podcast, the concept of your ideas.
I also think that the advantage, the positive side of it is, it's such, not narrow, I don't want to say that, but, like, such a focused idea that whoever's on board will be on board or not.
Yeah.
So when you have somebody on board, like, you'll know, like, they're pretty much, like, on board,
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool.
I seriously want to watch the whole thing of the Jeffree Star thing, because the thing that it really has made me realize, and this isn't a new idea at all, is that the rollout is the most important thing of it, not even just the makeup line. Literally anything that you're trying to put out to people needs to have that marketing, the rollout. Like, even if you're trying to just sell this pen to another person, like, there has to be a rollout for them to be interested to buy that pen.
And then to have the longevity is for it to, like, pay out when it happens, because that was part of Jeffree's thing too, was, like, I did not even touch his makeup, but supposedly from, like, makeup friends and stuff, like, when we got it, there was a lot of hype, but when we bought it, it was, like, good. They said, like, it had all the qualities they wanted in it. It wasn't sticky, it didn't make them break out or whatever, all that stuff. Like, it was a good color, like, they couldn't find it anywhere else, So it got them to, like, keep going.
Meets their expectations.
And, like,
they expect that the next time, or exceeds their expectations.
So,
and that's why they keep coming back.
What I love about this podcast and the record label idea never being done before is that if it does work, you have a whole, like, series of I Told You So, which I love. Like, because personally, whenever I'm like, I want to do this thing, like, well, I haven't seen that done before. I'm like, I'm just going to do it. And then I do it. And people are like, who knew? I knew. Like, I knew. Like, that's just,
Well, guys, you've given me way more than I thought. I was like, oh, we talked for 15 minutes, and I'm glad you guys talked a lot more, because I can appreciate it and I can use it, because this is going to be such a long journey. Yeah. Oh, I got a headache from it already.
Yeah, it makes me nervous for you.
I'm excited.
But that's what it is. Like, it's like an excited nervous, because I know, like, you're going to do good work. That's not what I'm afraid of, though. It's not you doing good work. It's everybody else.
I'm afraid of losing my rear end.
Yeah.
My wife is going to be like, what?
I love... Josh just told us the name of the first episode of this, and I love it. So that already started off that, like, this hasn't been done before. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Also, I know Angie, so this makes it funnier.
And we'll help as much as we can, or if you need another studio wired up.
Maybe, you were talking earlier not to, buy all that stuff and do all that stuff beforehand. Like, I so want to, like, I want to be like, I want to buy a spot, or I want to rent a spot and build it all out. All this stuff. Like, I always have to be like, okay, stop looking at Craigslist for spots. Stop doing this, because you're nowhere near anywhere that.
See, but then you also can look at it this way too. Like, okay, your goal is to get this spot for your deal.
Yeah.
But also think of everything else that could help you get that spot too.
Yeah.
Like a partnership with another company, or anything really. That's just one out of 100 different possibilities to where you could get that spot for your artists and stuff, but someone else is helping as well,
Yeah.
Like, I guess the point is just don't try to do it all yourself. Like, there's got to be ways that it's both more beneficial for you and easier on your stress level.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be stressful.
It's going to be stressful.
Money is stress.
That's going to be hard.
People are.
Money is going to be hard. Well,
Maury fan. I haven't even heard any of the other episodes yet.
well, we should get out of here, guys.
Yeah. In-N-Out turned off their lights on us.
It's awesome to be able to bounce ideas off of friends or mentors or someone that's is not going to give you a load of BS or crap on your dream. But I am so glad that they're interested in it, that they think it's a good idea. And that really kind of helps me. That helps me move forward and gives me some hope and passion to let me know that if they're interested in something like this, that other people are going to be interested too. So thanks for listening to this week's podcast. And if you're not already, please subscribe on pretty much any podcasting app that's out there. We also, if you go to our webpage, you can stream it straight from there. If you're feeling particularly helpful, you can definitely stroll over to Apple Podcasts and give us a review there. And I just want to thank you for listening.